Karlsson Price for Friday, March 20th, 2026. Presentation of Bet365. Check out Bet365's early 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up 3, you get paid. That's simple. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Matt Sekeres virtually alongside Blake Price. 4-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson hitting switches and conducting things. Coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studio here at the historic Wall Center. Visit shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. And I just want to start, partner, because on Monday, of course, we talked about how last Saturday was, for the first time ever, the 4 big Vancouver or Vancouver adjacent hockey franchises all playing at home on the same day, and alas, going 0 for 4 with the Canucks, both senior and Abbey, the Golden Eyes, and the Giants.
So Vancouver.
Yeah. We have a humdinger of a sports weekend here, which starts tonight at Rogers Arena with the Vancouver Warriors versus Ottawa in the NLL. And we talked about this game earlier in the week. The Warriors have a chance to move into a tie for first place in the NLL with a win and a Saskatchewan loss. They're down the stretch drive of their season. Then tomorrow it gets going 3 o'clock at the Coliseum. Golden Eyes home to Minnesota. Final game of a 5-game homestand. Coming off a win and need more of those to get back in the playoff hunt. Then it's a 4 o'clock start at Rogers Arena, Canucks Blues. 7 o'clock out at the LEC, Vancouver Giants versus Kamloops. It's the season finale for the Giants, and of course the farewell to their beloved radio color man, Bill Wilms. And we had Billy on the show earlier in the week. And then 7:30 at BC Place, the Caps host San Jose, and 4-0 versus 3-1 atop the Western Conference. So you've got 5 games this weekend that you can attend in person. Weather isn't supposed to be great. At least it's looking a little better than the deluge of the last few days. You've got 5 games this weekend you can attend in person, and some of them are pretty attractive on the marquee.
And because the onus is not purely on hockey, there's lacrosse and soccer mixed in. Maybe the cocktail is a little bit different than it was a week ago. And might have room for a victory, maybe?
The soccer team and the lacrosse team do this thing called winning on the regular.
Yes. They may have the weight of that this weekend as well.
Absolutely. We'll start with our daily poll question. Would winning the draft lottery be the biggest day in Canucks history? You can vote yes. You can vote no. Do so at the Karlsson Price X and YouTube channels. The word came last night via Frank Saravelli. The lottery is set for May 5th this year. We had been sitting here wondering, when is the lottery going to be? When are they going to announce the lottery? Because it's been the biggest day for Canucks fans to point forward to in some time. But we can tell you Tuesday, May 5th, according to Saravelli, usually takes place in and around a Stanley Cup playoff game, either prior to or in an intermission. And, of course, we all know the prospects at the top of it. So I ask you, Blake Price, if they win it on March 5th, biggest day in Canucks history.
Incidentally, I would guess that's into the second round. That might be like, game 1 or game 2 of the second round.
You would think that, but the season's been pushed back. Like, who knows, Blake? You know how they love to take their breaks between series and building availability. Some days it's some series it's 2 days off a couple of times. Look, I answered the question. I said, if this was a McDavid or a Crosby draft, I would vote yes, absolutely. Alas, Gavin McKenna and Ivar Stenberg aren't quite of that level. And, it's a big statement, biggest day in Canucks history. It's the day they got the NHL franchise, which, needless to say, was pretty important. Pavel Bure's debut. We still talk about that day all these years later. We still joke about, how many 100,000s fit into the Coliseum that night, given all those who claim to have been there. And let's face it, Pavel Bure was not a first overall, but he was a first overall talent and brought new hope to the franchise. Some are saying the day that they were able to lure Pat Quinn from the LA Kings. I believe there was a briefcase full of cash involved because the big Irishman, of course, forged a new era of Canucks hockey. Some are saying the Sedin draft and Brian Burke's work on the floor of the Boston Garden in Boston, manipulating all those trades to acquire Henrik and Daniel Sedin. So
there were other big trades too. Like we're going to talk about the Marcus Naslund trade coming up, the Luongo trade.
Yep,
both incoming and outgoing were big moments
last January 31st with the JT Miller trade and the Marcus Paterson that completely reshaped the franchise. Not for the better, but that was a huge day. The Quinn Hughes trade was a huge day. So, yeah, plenty of big days. No wrong answers here. It's one of those. It's how you see it.
My vote is no as well, and it's for this reason. And Matt, to me, this is actually encapsulating, even if it was a Connor McDavid level of player. You draft that player that day with the hope that they give you the chance to win the Stanley Cup. And that they lead you to a day where if you win that day, you win the Stanley Cup. Well, the Canucks have already had 3 of those days in their history. So it's tough to beat those days. There are 3 times where Canucks teams have woken up that in a morning knowing they could be Stanley Cup champs by the end of that day. Yep. Those are 3 bigger days than this day. This day is just the hope, the promise perhaps of getting to that day.
Fair enough. Like I said, no wrong answers here. It's interpret the question as you see fit. For many, I think, because they lost all 3 of those days, Blake. And, of course, 2 of those days live in infamy because of what happened on the streets of Vancouver after the hockey game.
Yeah, well, maybe the days are actually the days that set up those days. Maybe it's actually the game, the wins that.
But then you're back to hope and optimism. Then you're back to hope days, right?
But you're closer. You're closer.
Needless to say, June 5th, 2011, June 15th, 2011, very big day in Canucks history. So you mentioned the Marcus Naslund trade. It was 30 years ago today.
Yeah.
How about that? 2 Penguins, Alex Stoyanov. Stoyanov would play 45 games in Pittsburgh. Naslund would go on to score a mere 346 goals, 756 points. Okay, let's address this. And it will be the first time we address it because there is no conclusion here yet. I have had a number of inquiries from friends, from audience members. I was on a podcast this week. They asked as well. Are you guys going to do an on-location draft lottery show? Now, this is a sensitive matter for Blake and I. We've been down this road before, many times before. And there are scars, really deep emotional scars. There were a number of years there, of course, when the Vancouver Canucks were not very good. And our bosses at the old radio station viewed Draft Lottery Day as a day to get out there with the public, do an on-location show, and, of course, celebrate when the Canucks won a lottery and got the first, second. I believe there were even lotteries for 3rd overall pick back then. And so many times Blake and I packed up the gear with a remote producer. In fact, I think Canberra produced a couple of them. And headed down to a local establishment, The Pint. You remember, Blake? And invariably, what happened? Scores of people flooded into the bar as we got closer to draft lottery
Place
time.
was jammed.
Jammed. Everybody in their Canucks sweaters, their scarves, their toques, their jerseys. Drinks are flowing. Everybody's having a good time. And then Bill Daly flips open the card with the Canucks logo at a lower draft position than everybody hoped. And the speed and velocity with which the vibe changes and the room empties, and I do mean empty, was staggering. Whiplash. Blake and I are having this great show because, you know, when you go out and do a show in the public, you want there to be ambience, you want there to be a good crowd. So you're sitting there, you're having this wonderful professional day. Look at all the listeners. Isn't this great? Blah, blah, blah. And then the card pops up, and there is no deflation like a draft lottery loss deflation.
Oh my gosh, no.
Everybody's got their arm up. They're looking for the check. The waitress is sprinting around the bar, settling every. And within 10 to 15 minutes, you're talking to an empty room. So the short answer is.
What do you think was what was the most disappointing year? The year that we're both thinking of at the point. What year do you think that was?
If I'm not mistaken, that was the year where the Canucks finished with the second worst record in the NHL. And thus a really good chance to win the draft lottery and picked fifth, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that Ola Uelevi in the end? Or is that Elias Paterson?
Honestly, like I said, there's emotional scarring, so a lot of them sort of blends together. That was the year, Blake. Remember, I had the eagle. I had the stuffed eagle on my shoulder because the line that year was "The eagle will land." Finally, the eagle will land. The Canucks will get first overall, and
two very different drafts: the Uelevi fifth and the Paterson fifth in the end. But yeah, I mean that's the thing is if they had won the draft lottery that year, the team would have. The bar would have celebrated maybe to the wee hours. I mean,
absolutely. It would have been a joyous place. But as we know, Blake, even in that format and with what's coming here on May 5th, it's more likely not to happen than it is to happen. And that's what's got me demurred on all this. Like, if it was more than a 50% chance, I might think differently. What's the 25% chance of first overall? 1 in 4, given the history, given the emotional scars, given my experience, my brain is telling me, no, you know better. Don't do this. Don't do this to yourself. Don't do this to the bar. Don't do this to others. And yet, it's only going to pick up. The number of people going, what are you guys doing for a draft lottery? We're going to have a party for a draft lottery? You're doing a show on location for a draft party? To be determined, the short answer.
I do cringe a little bit too, Matt, because if the Canucks even only slid one spot, if the Canucks finish second, and I'm of the mind, I believe Gavin McKenna's going first. People can rank Stenberg first here, there, and everywhere, but I do think McKenna's going first. And I do think I doubt the Canucks trade down from there for Caleb Malhotra or the Snares. We'll talk about that when it happens. But my worry is, the Canucks draft Ivar Stenberg, and I am not really willing to entertain the anti-Swedish bias that is going to
especially since
percolate through.
We talked about it earlier in the week. Stenberg plays a more North American style game than McKenna. McKenna's a perimeter playmaker.
Perimeter player, yeah.
Stenberg gets involved in the traffic and on the walls.
But given what we saw with the Sedins already, given what we have seen from Elias Pettersson's detractors, I don't want to have that conversation.
Yeah,
so I would just prefer the Canucks to win the damn thing, choose Gavin McKenna, and let's move on.
Oh, and I wanted to get to this when talking about the draft lottery disappointment and fallout. This is from a Canucks fan. I came across it last night. I'm not going to go to any draft party. I encourage Canucks fans not to either. I don't want my face filmed at all if the Canucks don't get the first overall pick. It's a franchise that gets kicked when it's down. Why add to it? There were also television cameras at some of these draft parties we went to, Blake.
Oh, yeah.
Filming the moment of. We have some friends who were on the nightly news that night. Oh. When this moment of glee and big smiles turns instantly to frowns. So anyways.
Might have been a tear. Might have been a tear from somebody.
I think there were some tears. Yep.
Yeah.
So vote on the poll question. Yes, no, would it be the biggest day in Canucks history? Our top story today brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. A day of destiny with the NHL Draft Lottery going May 5th. The Canucks rebuild and future course gets in the starters block with a 25% chance of landing first overall for the first time ever. The Canucks have never picked first. They thought they won a spin of the infamous draft wheel in their expansion season in the 1970 draft, but alas, upon further inspection, the Sabres won. They selected Gilbert Perreault first overall. He would go on to a Hall of Fame career. The Canucks settled for Dale Talon, who's still with the organization in a executive capacity. This year, the distinction between the first and second overall picks, not as stark as it was in 1970, with still several evaluators having Sweden's Ivar Stenberg ranked ahead of Penn State's Gavin McKenna. And the lottery is changing this year. It will no longer be conducted in a secret back room with scrutineers from participating clubs, and then revealed on TV where the dignitaries from each member club know the proceedings. The lottery will be conducted live with teams and fans finding out their fate in real time. That adds transparency. That adds drama. Both things were lacking somewhat in the old format. You've been critical of this TV show before.
Can't wait for the electric Patrick Alvin to be there to provide all of the color and sizzle for the Vancouver Canucks.
I was thinking about this yesterday. Are the Canucks going to send Alvin, or is Aquilini going to be the guy on stage? And as we know, Francesco usually shies away from the spotlight. He has attended draft lotteries in the past. He just hasn't been the representative on stage. He usually shies away from the spotlight, but we know how much he likes star power, and we know how bad his reputation is. Does he want the visual of being the guy with the Canucks in the first overall pick if it turns out that way?
Well, it depends on who's in
because he loves being on the draft stage, right? He loves being on the draft stage with the first rounder. In fact, there have been years where the NHL has limited the number of people you're allowed to go up on stage, and the Aquilini family, and Francesco in particular, have been adamant that they're the ones up on the draft stage and taking in that shine. And hey, I realize you scouts worked on all this, but these are our moment, my moment. So I am wondering, is it going to be Francesco? Is it going to be Alvin?
He loves to be the star when it's the right moment. And at the draft, of course, every time you bring up a young player, that player's undefeated, hasn't given away the puck once in your uniform, right? So those are good moments. That's why he wants to be there. And in the lottery, sense of things, it depends on who's in his ear, Matt. Like they've never had better odds. And if that's all he's thinking about, I want to be the star when this happens. I got to be up there. But somebody's got to say there's a 75% chance you slide down at least one rung, right? So he's got to know there is a more likely scenario where you are the face of bad news for the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah.
And,
but can he resist the temptation of being the guy facing all this if the moment comes through, Blake? That's what I'm trying to wrap. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who knows?
And look, so long as the Canucks remain in last place, and they're currently 11 points back of the Flames, so very little chance they're going to finish anywhere about 36. Yeah. They pick no lower than third. They've got a 25.1% chance of picking first, an 18.6% chance of landing the second overall pick, and a 56.3% likelihood of picking third overall. 11 teams could win the lottery and pick first overall, the bottom 11 finishers in the league standings. And just 15 teams, not 16 this year, with a chance to win a lottery and move up 10 spots. As you may have heard, we mentioned this last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it happened. The Ottawa Senators will select 32nd overall. They are locked in there after their first-round pick was restored by the NHL. It had been taken away for punishment on that Evgeny Dadonov no-trade list miss. The Senators are ineligible lottery-wise, and so if they finish outside the playoffs, where they stand right now, it's 15 teams with a chance to jump up. The 4 best teams from the non-playoff field can only improve 10 places, so they cannot select first overall.
On the standings front, if the Canucks finish 6-8, which would be a very good finish for them based on points percentage of their season to date, and what 6-8 is, which is just below 500. If they finish 6-8, have a huge uptick here in their winning down the stretch, Calgary would need to lose out the final 14 games of the season for the Canucks to lose 32nd place. So when we say it's a virtual guarantee, it is a virtual guarantee.
Yeah.
Calgary would need to lose out for there to be drama, and they're not going to lose it.
Yeah. And actually, and I only came across this today, because and it's not set yet, the Senators could still make the playoffs and then bump a team into the lottery field, and then you have your full complement of 16. But if it were to end with the Senators missing the playoffs and being removed from the lottery, it actually decreases the Canucks' odds, Blake. They would have had a 25.5% chance, so 0.4% more, of picking first overall, 18.8 as opposed to 18.6 of picking second overall. So with this Ottawa pick removed, the Canucks' chances of picking third overall increased by 0.6%. From 55.7 to 56.3, or 0.7%, or 0.6%. Yeah, don't ask me to do the math. This is well beyond me. But here's where we are, and Tankathon is a very useful resource tool for figuring all this out. And it's a Friday
tax season, Matt. We've got too many numbers in our head right now as it is. Don't ask for additional calculations.
I pay others to do math now, even with the calculator, Blake.
Yeah, so that's understandable. Hey, Yellow Dog has got a new offering. Well, it's an old favorite they're bringing back. It's actually under the neighborhood banner. It's the Sunshine City Passion Fruit Wheat Ale. I believe this might be one of the favorites for Mike Rogerson. The wheat ale, it's a gold medal winning brew. Silky smooth base, tart and exotic characteristics of passion fruit, and a perfect accompaniment to sunshine, beaches, and good times. And yes, I know it's been a tough few days in the rain, but the sunshine will come. And if you're in need of it in the real near future, just drive to Penticton. It is usually sunny there. The home base for neighborhood.
Somebody told me it's going to be like 20 degrees in Kamloops today. So yeah, good on the Thompson and Okanagan getting the weather. Can you hear this, Mike? Oh, I know it's been raining as he sits there in a sunny climb on March break. Canucks lose 6-2 to Tampa at Rogers Arena last night. Still no consecutive wins at home all season, not since last March. 3 games left on this 8-game homestand, only 2 home games next month. So running out of opportunities to string together consecutive home wins. Tampa scores 3 times in a 5-minute, 31-second span of the second period. Canucks have now allowed a league worst 252 goals, 14 more than the San Jose Sharks. Let's get to some of the good news. Marco Rossi, we love you. 2 more points, keeps his heater going. He's now up to 12 points in his last 8 games. And Liam Ogren, who some of us had as an anytime goal scorer with Bet365 last night, his 7th of the season as part of that bro line with Rossi and Besser, and it was Rossi, his centerman, who was talking about the progress Ogren is making. Here's Marco.
I mean, you always knew that he's kind of like that kind of player. You know, he's a really fast guy, and his shot is really good. So it's nice to see that he's going for it.
What's the best thing he's doing for your line right now?
I mean, he brings the speed. He goes on a forward check really hard, and when he gets the puck, he tries to find us, and he tries to get open again.
Well put. Rossi's a pretty good speaker of the game, too. I got to say, I've enjoyed his interviews of late. Go ahead.
And doesn't hurt that they both came over from Minnesota and have a little bit of built-in chemistry. Not that they played probably a ton together there because Ogren was down the lineup and Rossi wasn't. But, just knowledge of each other, I think, was probably a little bit helpful. And this is a guy, people forget, Ogren I'm talking about, came to the Canucks after 18 games with the Wild this season with no points. 0 on the docket. And he's put up 7-7, 14 here for the Vancouver Canucks in 37 games. It's not a blistering pace, but again, he's not being played a ton either. And this is still a young player, 22 years of age, just turned 22 like 6 weeks ago. And he was a first-round pick just out of the first half of the first round. He's a 19th overall. I'm not predicting Rocket Richard trophies. I'm just saying, could I see further development here, Matt? I could.
Absolutely.
I could see this guy further developing. Yeah.
Blake, the tools are there. They're loud. They're louder than most anybody else's tools on the Vancouver Canucks. Like, does anybody have a size, speed, shot combination like Liam Ogren does?
Differentiating skill. We've talked about this. Like, that's what Linus Karlsson actually has going against him. I don't know that Linus Karlsson has a differentiating skill. He's got good reach and size, I suppose, but he's not a behemoth. He's got good hands around the net, but it's not like all world. So he's doing it against all odds, I think, Linus Karlsson. Liam Ogren, he's got tools there. He's got to learn how to use them.
Yeah, and look, the point totals, and this goes for a lot of the young players, it's not just ice time. It's just until recently with Ogren alongside Rossi and Besser, nobody's scoring on this team. There's just not a lot of points to go around.
Oh, and that's a great point about last night. Like last night, 4 weeks ago, they have this game last night. It's 6-0, right? Like they got 2 goals. Like there's a lot of nights where they haven't been able to get to 2 goals, man. It's a 6-0 game last night. If it's played 4 weeks ago, I'm convinced of it.
Yeah.
But these guys are grinding out. They're finding ways.
And you've mentioned him. Let's get to the other Swedish winger who looked good. Karlsson, his 13th goal, up to 30 points in 65 NHL games this season. And JPAD had this stat. Among NHL forwards logging fewer than 12 minutes a night, he's the runaway scoring leader. Played nearly 16 last night, though. And I think it is time that Linus Karlsson gets some further duty from Adam Foote and this coaching staff. Again, these are games with no stakes for you as a team. So it's time to get development time, prioritize development time as much as possible.
As soon as last week, Matt, he was with Ratu and Höglander or Ratu and Kane on the 4th line. Like let's bump him up a little bit here. Let's see what Linus Karlsson can do in a more advantageous lineup.
Yeah. We have got to talk about Elias Paterson. 2 goals, 4 shots, 8 attempts on Tuesday. What are you going to do for an encore, son? It was 1 shot on goal on the first period on 3 attempts. No shots on the 2 power plays. He just too often goes meekly into the night, Blake. When things aren't going his way.
Against a good team. Against a good team, too. Like, it's one thing to look good against a team that, Florida's a shadow of its former self right now defensively. But, give them small credit for still beating a team that can on any given night beat you. And Florida did that to the Oilers last night, for heaven's sakes. But, can Elias Pettersson, when the odds are stacked against him because you're playing a good team, can he look good on one of those nights, please?
Yes, please.
That's what he's supposed to do. That's what he's supposed to do.
Yeah. Here's the other thing that Canucks fans were talking about last night outside of the game. And when we talk about Canucks Sports Entertainment being a poorly run organization, this is an example of what we're talking about. So first of all, really interesting position here. They've posted for a social media director, and they even said in the write-up, like, this isn't just editing and posting. You're going to be the voice that shapes Canucks content. So that's a pretty attractive role in this day and age.
Yeah.
There's only, 32 of these in the NHL, only so many of them for pro sports franchises, with a lot of young people who have the skill set and have developed that skill set to be able to step in that role. Well, as many pointed out, we took Cody Severson's tweet from Canucks Army. They did so without posting what the wage is, even though that's required by the BC Pay Transparency Act. Are they doing that because they're hoping to lowball whoever takes the job? We know, Blake, the staff turnover at Rogers Arena and Canucks Sports Entertainment. And it is so sad because in a lot of cases, you have bright, wide-eyed, earnest young people who are landing a job with the team that they've grown up worshiping and cannot believe that they are going to work, that Rogers Arena is their workplace. They have all of this enthusiasm, and then they get in there and they realize how ham-handedly it is run, how little freedom they have, how poor the pay is, and how the workplace morale isn't exactly high. And oftentimes, they turn over and look for other jobs quickly. This has been the case for a number of years. If you look at the job boards at Canucks Sports Entertainment and positions that are open, you will see that oftentimes you have the same position that's coming open year after year or every couple of years. It's really just too bad. At one point, this was a best-in-class run organization, and under Aquilini ownership, too. The hockey operations were trailblazers on sports science, certainly in the National Hockey League, and the business side, which had a sellout streak of a decade-plus going with incredibly sharp people, best-in-class department heads across the NHL. Tons of people around the NHL would tell you that, too. And fast forward all these years later, and it's just not the place that it used to be, and has gone downhill.
Job listings, too, just sitting there for months, too.
Right.
You almost wonder if they're ever planning on filling them. And the reputation for the Canucks for years now, under this ownership group, has been part of the pay that you get is just the badge in your chest.
That's right.
That it's not going to be top of class for salary, but you get to work for the Vancouver Canucks, and they have exploited that, and they know that.
Yep. Well, I think the word is out now. Anyways, let's look around the NHL because there were some happenings I want to get to from last night. Columbus wins again. They beat the Rangers 6-3. Crazy. Edmonton loses again 4-0 to Florida, who I'm sure were a little chapped by their loss here earlier in the week. That was in a Stanley Cup final rematch, of course. First Columbus, January 12th, they made the coaching change. Dean Evison out, Rick Bowness in. Remember, we were joined by Lawrence Gilman a couple of days after that, right? He took a new job as AGM with the Blue Jackets. They were in last place of the Eastern Conference. Now, it was a very tightly packed Eastern Conference at the time, but nevertheless, they were in last place. They're now on a playoff spot. They are third in the Metro thanks to the win last night with a game in hand on the Islanders. And Blake, they are 17-2-4 since the Happy Halagoni and Rick Bowness took charge of that team. Bravo, Don Waddell. Holy cow, what a time to pick to change your coach. And look at, we've heard of new coach bumps, Blake, but 17-2-4 in 23 games, that's astonishing work from a guy that not many people thought would coach in the NHL again, was retired for heaven's sakes.
And Lawrence gave us the answers that he gave us on the air, but you and I both had more full-throated conversations with him off the air in and around the time that he was hired there. And even in those conversations off the air, he gave us not his rosy-eyed optimism, because he just arrived. He didn't really know anybody in there from Adam or Eve. But he said that everybody, to a man and woman inside that organization, was convinced that this team was way better than what their record had indicated.
And it was on paper, Blake.
Yeah, and it seemed more than just the standard lip service that every team sort of in the mushy middle would say. Like, they seemed utterly convinced of it. Well, they've been redeemed for having those feelings.
They're absolutely right. I think it was a better team on paper than what it was showing, and they stuck with it. They even made a trade, right? They added Marchman, and it's done well for them. Now, the flip side, Edmonton. This from our friend Jason Greger. Team that has beat you twice in the Cup final has chanted about your best players and chirped them on home ice in a game you need to win. You show up with no emotion, no physicality, trail after 20 minutes. Not enough grit on this team. Well, it would get worse from there, Jason. They didn't score a goal. And of course, Draisaitl's out for the remainder of the regular season. I've said it before. I even did Edmonton radio or Edmonton podcast last week. And I said, I don't get wrapped up in the Oilers regular season mini dramas, because that's all they are. I know they're going to the playoffs, and I know they're winning multiple rounds when they get there. I don't know, Blake. This one might be a little different with Draisaitl out, because we know he's out for the rest of the regular season. We don't know about the playoffs. And look, the thing they've got going for them is that this is a terrible Pacific Division. Oh, my God, Blake. Like, when you look back to the Canucks and think, even if you had had any kind of reasonable season, you would be in the thick of this sucker. Because look at how fucking... Mike pointed it out to me today. Mike, it's now 10 teams in the East that would be first place in the Pacific.
10 in the East would be first in the Pacific.
Anaheim's your division leader. They've got a minus 11 goal differential. The Kings are at a minus 22 goal differential. They were the only team in the Western Conference Chase playoff pack who picked up a point last night. This is just a god-awful division. And yet Edmonton is still flirting with missing the playoffs.
Edmonton is just 7 games above 500. Remember, they've played 70 games. So, yes, they're at 77 points and right now by points in second in the Pacific. But because of those games played, it might not be a realistic reflection of where they are in the conference per se. And
LA and Seattle both have 2 games in hand. If they were both to win those games, they would be in striking distance. Vegas leapfrogs Edmonton with a win. They have a game in hand as well.
But does the Pacific Division leader not break the 100-point barrier? Like, that would be embarrassing in today's day and age. Like, 100 points is not a feat. And you're going to have a division leader that's below 100 points. Like, Anaheim is 22 points in arrears of 100 points, and they've only got 14 games left. Yeah. They've got to win 11 of those 14 games.
I mean, that's a hell of a heater. Yes.
And right now in the Western Conference, only Dallas and Colorado have more than 5 wins in the last 10 column. Yep. Everybody else in the entire Western Conference is at a maximum of 5 wins in their last 10 games. That's how mediocre the Western Conference is right now.
Speaking of the Blue Jackets, former Blue Jacket, Port Moody's Ryan Johansson announced his retirement from professional hockey, age 33. Played 905 games in the National Hockey League with Columbus, Nashville, Colorado, Philadelphia. Was drafted 4th overall, of course, by those Blue Jackets in the 2010 entry draft. He had a grievance ongoing against Philadelphia. He lost it, and it appears like not playing after that. Tender age of 33. We had Ryan on the show a number of times over the years. I can remember how festive he was when his brother Lucas was selected in the first round at that one draft. So all the best to Ryan Johansson in retirement. And Blake mentioned it off the top. It is the final weekend of regular season games in the Western Hockey League. We had Bill Wilms on the show on Wednesday, his final farewell broadcast Saturday. I believe I said Sunday when we had him on, but it is Saturday at the LEC because, of course, the Giants aren't heading to the playoffs. So want to listen to Billy on Saturday night here as he says his farewells from the LEC. Also, some playoff matchups to be determined still. The Giants' opponent this weekend, Kamloops, they know they're going to the playoffs, and they know they're playing a BC opponent, but it's not yet set. Could be an all-BC first round against Prince George. Could be an all-BC round against Kelowna, who, of course, hosting the Memorial Cup this year and will be a participant. Rockets feature Canucks draft pick Parker Alcos, another Pomo guy. Defenseman came over in a trade from the Edmonton Oil Kings. Penticton is locked into the number 2 seed in the WHL Western Conference. They, and in their expansion season, no less, good on the V's, they will face either Seattle, Portland, or even Victoria. The Royals can still sneak in here. And then over on the West, and I think there will be some Canucks eyes, over in the East, I think there will be some Canucks eyes looking over at the Dubs Eastern Conference because you have Braden Coots' Prince Albert Raiders, who are vying with the Medicine Hat Tigers, former head coach Willie Desjardins back in his old haunt, and, of course, the top-scoring Ruck Twins from Osoyoos. They are still vying for the number 1 seed in the WHL Eastern Conference, and needless to say, it would surprise no one if Medicine Hat and the Ruck Twins or if Braden Coots and the Raiders play deep into the spring.
It's going to be a lot of fun to monitor all of those goings on. And I mean, you hope that it ends with the Ruck Twins versus Coots, as deep into the playoffs as possible to get some of those eyeballs on there as it becomes a little more widely spread available to watch on TV. CHL broadcasts are not
not easy,
prolific on TV anymore. So
yes, and I do want to see Coots again. Of course, saw him for 3 games with the Canucks at the beginning of this season. Let's get to our menu. It's brought to you by Greta, a fantastic spot to pregame or postgame. We've talked about all the events that are going on in Vancouver this weekend. Pregame, postgame at Greta, steps from the stadium or the arena. It's an awesome spot if you're planning a private party, whether that's a workplace, sports team, family reunion. They've got a private area at the back that will suit you well. It's surrounded by an arcade. There's a game for everybody. The menu, delicious. Try the smash burger. People rave about it. For more information, to book your event, go to gretabar.com. Greta 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. Big show here. We got J-Pat coming up on the Canucks game last night and the lottery. We'll talk to Jeff Merrick. Lots of lottery talk with him. Ralph Priso, Whitecaps center back and member of the Canadian men's national team for this international window later in the month. He'll join us as well. Plus, some speculation about a potential buyer for the Whitecaps. Whitecaps still involved in the community, and there was a big announcement there yesterday about mini pitches, as well as some more details about the FIFA Fan Fest that's coming to Vancouver in the month of June when the World Cup arrives as well. So big show here on a Friday edition of Karlsson Price. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. And Blake, we had the Rossi 2-point game at plus, I think it was 575 on Tuesday. We had Ogren to score a goal last night at plus 475.
Oh my gosh.
We're feeling pretty good about ourselves.
You're in a bathtub of cash right now.
Absolutely. I looked at the Caps game. Boy, they really like pricing the Caps as a heavy favorite still. And I know they've earned it. It's just, it's hard to, me, Blake, I like my value. It's hard to find value on anything Whitecap these days. I mean, even Jeevan Bodwal is low odds to score a goal or have a goal contribution. Bet365 is wise to the Caps and all the good happenings there. So I'm going to go over to the NCAA basketball tournament. I do like an upset tomorrow because I like Texas A&M. They're deep. They got athletes. I know Houston's a great defensive club with a lot of pedigree, but I'm going to take 11.5 points. I think it's too much. And the Aggies, smaller bet on them to upset the Cougars at plus 350.
Wow. Things clean up NHL odds, aren't they? With games grinding down now at the end of the schedule, you're either a profound favorite or underdog, or they're like basically pick 'em games. Ducks versus Mammoth could be a lot of fun tonight. And the Anaheim Ducks, as we talked about, they've got a chance to win a division against all odds. They're the only plus value that I see, especially in the Western Conference. Take the Ducks over the Mammoth plus 110 on Anaheim.
Every sports fan will tell you that not all games are created equal. Sometimes the excitement just isn't there. Sometimes you get a dud. It happens. But at Bet365, boring games are a thing of the past. Now there's always a reason to tune in, even if the score isn't one of them. And while they can, Bet365 can't make every game exciting, they can help fans get excited about every game. Bet365. Download the app today. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. J-Pat is next. Secure some price from the historic Wall Center.
Pizza wants you to eat pizza, wants you to eat their pizza, and they want you to eat it sooner rather than later. Isn't that conscientious of them? I think so. They've got a delivery guarantee. If your order is not delivered on time, it's a free pizza. That's right. When you place your order, you'll get your estimated time of delivery. If your food arrives after that time, your order is free. What is this, 1986? Yep, they're still doing it. Pizza's delivery guarantee. Go pick up a Volcano Dipper pizza today. And if it's late, it's on them. Pizza.
Well, there was an eruption at Rogers Arena last night. It was from the Tampa Bay Lightning, who scored 3 goals quickly at the start of the second period, and that was that for the Vancouver Canucks. Here to join is the host of Rinkwide Vancouver, our Canucks reporter, Mr. Jeff Paterson. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, guys. And just back to pizza for a sec. And with all due respect to pizza, I prefer my pizza later rather than sooner. My family thinks I'm a complete monster in this, but I actually think I now like pizza the day after. And sometimes in the morning, cold pizza. And I get the craziest looks from my family members, but I mean, I'll still take a pizza hot out of the box, but I have quite taken to pizza the next day as well.
Old lasagna, too. Old lasagna that's had a chance to really have the flavor seep in. Love old lasagna as well.
Well, we now have verbal instructions in my home. Honey, I am saving my last 2 pieces for tomorrow morning's breakfast. So I'm with you, Jeff. Great shout. We didn't get a chance to talk to you after Elias Paterson's big game. Actually, did we talk to? Yeah. Refresh me, Jeff. When did you co-host for? No. Yes, that's right.
I was there in the build-up. I was there with you in the moments leading up to his game of the season.
I know, and I was sitting here going, what's he going to do for an encore? It was 1 shot on goal on 3 attempts. Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, and part of a sad power play that we've seen way too often this season as well, where, say what you will about the rebuilding Canucks and young players and everything else, power play, they load up, they put the best players on the ice, and they had a chance to open the scoring in the hockey game with the power play, did absolutely nothing, and at 4-1 late in the second period, they had a power play, and again, maybe did less than they did in the, so there were moments in that game where They came off a power play that scored twice the other night against the Florida Panthers. How did it score? By getting pucks to and on the net and ultimately in the net, and just 3 shots in 2 power plays last night. And Paterson was a big part of that. So, yeah, that's disappointing. I mean, again, in isolation, it was just one night, and it was. How's he going to follow up? Was there positive reinforcement, even at this stage of his career as he nears 500 points, that, hey, do those things, the fundamentals, and sometimes good things happen. And then it was just like, nope, he went back to sort of playing on the perimeter and, not wanting the puck, not commanding the puck. And we're talking about him. There's lots to go around on a night like last night. It's just so evident when you watch 2 teams at just starkly different stages of their competitive cycle. And the Bolts mean business, and they did. Although I have to say, and we've seen other teams do this come through Rogers Arena, where they really didn't have to be at the top of their game. They just had to be at a level that was better than the Canucks could match. And that's kind of how that game went last night.
They know where that switch is, right? They can flick it at any time. They know where it is. And when they reach it, we need to reach for it. They flick it as they did in the middle part of that period, of the first period. And then for the rest of the night, it was over. They are better judged, I think, against teams like Florida, the below the playoff bar teams, and there's lots more where that came from still in the remaining 14 games of the schedule. I think we can judge their effort, though, more accurately, and I'm a little disappointed in that too, Jeff. Like I thought the legs could have been moving. I thought there could have been symbols of effort a little bit more than there was.
Yeah, and it looked and felt a lot like the Seattle game not that long ago, where the Canucks hang for 20 minutes, and they've shown throughout the season that they're capable of hanging with most teams for a period, but it's a 3-period game. And how many times, Matt, you mentioned it there, 3 goals, 5 minutes and 31 seconds in that second period, and the long change is the same for both teams, and yet Adam Foote has lamented second periods. He's lamented poor line changes. The fact that the Canucks get pinned in their own zone, they get running around. All they can do is flip the puck to center and maybe try to get a couple of guys off the ice. And we've seen this so many times where quick strikes by the opponents, mostly in that second period. And we pointed this out on Rinkwide last night that no team in the NHL has given up more goals in any period than the Vancouver Canucks have in the second. So they do stand alone in that regard as just a terrible second period team, and it is the same long change for both teams. But as opponents scout, like, these kinds of trends get picked up, and I think teams realize, like, just apply the pressure, and eventually the Canucks are going to buckle, and that is what happened. And Kevin Lankinen was good in the first period, but again, he can only do so much. That glove save was remarkable at 2-0. You thought maybe that would give them some sort of wake-up call and a boost. The timeout, whatever. Game, it gets to garbage time at 4-0, and at that point, anything they do after that, I think, has to be viewed through that lens that, all right, they chipped away, but I don't think Tampa was ever frightened, even when it was a 4-2 hockey game for 34 seconds or whatever it was there in the third period.
And Jeff, this brings in an oddity that. I sit here and I just can't believe it. Have not won consecutive games on Rogers Arena ice since March 7th of last year. 3 games left on this 8-game homestand, and then just 2 consecutive games in the month of April with a Utah-Vegas do-si-do. Are we wrapping our heads around the fact that Canucks may go a full season without stringing together 2 straight wins on home ice?
Oh, I think so. I think you have to be prepared for that now. Now, they got a St. Louis team that is in their neighborhood, although has been better since the Olympic break. So, you can't start the streak without the first one. So that's where they are on Saturday, and then take your chances after that. But beyond that, Matt, I think you have to wrap your head around the fact, too, that with 6 home games remaining, they have 8 wins all season on home ice. Like, they may not get to 10 wins. They may not reach double digits in home ice victories over a 41 home game slate. And so there have been so many ways to come at this season, but yeah, some of these home ice records, the futility, it is wild to think that they can't win back-to-back games, that on one half of that equation, one of their players rises up and has a big game, and on the next one, the power play comes through for them, or they run into leaky goaltending on the other side, or officiating that works in their favor. Like, there are so many factors at play here. I've thought about this a number of times through the season, and it just blows your mind that all of these things haven't come together once that would allow them to post back-to-back victories at the Rocks.
Everything needs to go right for this team, right? Planets need to align for this team to win a single hockey game, and then asking for those planets to align again for a second straight night. It's a lot to ask. All that being said, one guy still found a way onto the score sheet a couple of times, and that is Marco Rossi. And on a night-to-night basis, when you look back on 100-point seasons for Elias Paterson and further back into Canucks history as well, that's what happens with those kinds of seasons. Is even on that player's or that team's bad nights, that player finds a way to get onto the score sheet. And I'm not predicting that Marco Rossi blossoms into a 100-point season player, but it's a really good sign that he's just finding a way to make a little bit of a difference on a nightly basis on a pretty bad team.
I hear you. I'm not sure I can get there last night because the underlying numbers were so cruel to the bro line. The bros weren't bros last night. I know that they had the Canucks' first goal. That was their first shot attempt. It wound up in the back of the net late in the second period. Otherwise, and they were hard matched, just the way that the Canucks tried to work their bench to match up against Kucherov. That line of Rossi with Besser and Ogren basically saw a steady diet of Jake Gensel and Braden Point, and it was a complete mismatch there. So you're right. At the end of a season, when a guy racks up points, there have to be nights like that. And Marco Rossi has been productive. 12 points in 8 games in this season, in this economy. Come on. So, yeah, I do want to give him the credit. He got a fortunate bounce last night that wound up on his stick and ultimately gets the assist on the Karlsson goal. You think back late in the Seattle game, Jamie Alexiak just coughed up. We were talking pizza earlier, right to Rossi with 20 seconds left in the hockey game. But they all go on his record at the end of the season, and they're not in isolation. They're sort of toppers on nights where he's picking up other points along the way. So, yeah, on a night last night and in a season where so little has gone right for the Vancouver Canucks, I think it's fair to praise. He's healthy, he's looking confident, and there is some undeniable chemistry there that with now 14 games to go in the season, I do think you have to look at that trio with an eye to next year. And as they go into the offseason and try to figure out their roster, if that's a constant that they can have on a whiteboard somewhere at Rogers Arena, that, hey, there's a line that, it worked, the proof of concept is in place. We're going to start the season. I'm not saying that those three guys will play together all of next year. But, yeah, it feels like a little building block at the very least with an eye to next year.
A starting point in September at the very least, right?
Yeah.
And it's just nice to see that they have a player, too. Like you talked about turnover. Jeff, there's a lot of players on this roster that, given a pizza, would not be able to deliver it. And it's just nice to know that there is a player on this team that can deliver after getting that giveaway. And again, yeah, you're right. Small building block for the future.
Yeah, another building block is Linus Karlsson, and we mentioned it earlier. Jeff saw your tweet. He scores a goal last night. Now he's -2, but he scores a goal last night, and he plays nearly 16 minutes. And we had your stat about where he ranks in terms of scorers in the National Hockey League, given his time on ice. The 16 minutes is decent, but are you up for more duty for Linus Karlsson going forward here in what's left of the schedule?
Well, I think so. With 14 games remaining, yeah. Why not? The guy has shown in snack sizes that he has been productive, and I think he has earned the opportunity. Right now they're looking. We're not going to touch the bro line. We just talked about those guys, so it's a question of if you want to move them all the way to the top, and maybe that bro line has now emerged as the top line for the Vancouver Canucks. But if you're going to put Karlsson back with Elias Paterson, Drew O'Connor's had a nice season. He's earned opportunities there, and I kind of feel like they're trying to get Jake DeBrusk going down the stretch here, whether for his own good or to boost his value if they go to the trade market in the offseason. But one of those guys would have to come off that line to make room for Linus Karlsson. Karlsson found himself on a line with Teddy Bluger and Max Sasson last night. And again, they drew the hard matchup against one of the best players in the NHL, but certainly the most productive player in the NHL since Christmas, just scoring at an outrageous rate. So that was always going to be a really difficult assignment. I got to thinking about Linus Karlsson, guys, and help me out here. I would think that the Vancouver Canucks would hold him up now as the poster boy for their development program. A guy that came through Abbotsford, got taste in the NHL, spent most of last season in Abbotsford, obviously had a great run to the Calder Cup, and then has graduated. And I think that's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? Like, good on Linus Karlsson. They have developed him into an everyday 30-point player in the National Hockey League. But if that's the high watermark for development, we're at a point in time, we talked about where the Canucks are, like, they're going to have all these draft picks coming. And they just simply have to, like, we've talked about their failure in second rounds, really outside of Mason Raymond and Thatcher Demko this century. They can't afford to miss. They've loaded up on these second rounders. They have to make the right selection and then develop those guys into not just NHLers, but they need one of them to pop somewhere along the line, or maybe two of them to pop. And so I think it's instructive that good on Linus Karlsson. He's put in the work. He's graduated to the National Hockey League. He got his extension. But they need better examples over the next 5 years of the development program. And I think Jonathan Lekkerimäki's in that system right now, but the jury is still out ultimately on where he tops out in all of this.
Yep, absolutely right. Moving on. The draft lottery and our daily poll question. I've seen you've answered it on X already. Would winning the draft lottery be the biggest day in Canucks history? And you're voting no because you're pointing to another big draft day move. Talk to us.
Wow, when you don't have a Stanley Cup on display in your home building and the banner to go along with it, obviously you're grasping for the greatest day in franchise history. Now, they've had 2 seventh games with a chance to win the Stanley Cup. Those would be on a list, but they didn't go the way the Canucks wanted. I looked at the day that Brian Burke did the draft floor maneuvering in Boston in 1999 to land the Sedins, that then set up the next decade plus and produced a pair of Hall of Famers. I would also suggest the day that the Canucks were able to wrangle Pat Quinn away from the Los Angeles Kings to set up another decade or so of prominence for the Vancouver Canucks, dare I say excellence, but it too didn't result in a championship. But I would look at those days as sort of pivotal days in the history of the Vancouver Canucks. But I get, like, optically, yes, for a team that's never had the first overall pick, that has had nothing but shitty luck when it comes to the lottery balls, winning it would represent something at the very least. But there's also the uncertainty that just getting the first overall pick, not every first overall pick is equal. We're on a nice run right now, first overalls with Bedard and Celebrini and Matthew Schaefer doing his thing, and really the last decade when you go back to Matthews and McDavid. But that doesn't guarantee that every year you're going to get. I always think about the Ottawa Senators. And with all due respect to Chris Phillips, who had a terrific, long, productive NHL career, but that year he just happened to be the guy that went first overall. And I know I'm going back 30 years here, but you can get Nail Yakupov as well. There are more recent examples. So just getting the first overall pick, having the lottery balls go your way, sure, it would be fun in the moment. But, I mean, really, it's just the start of a process that has to pan out for the Vancouver Canucks, and it's premature to call that, in my mind, the greatest day in franchise history.
Yeah.
Well, the element of luck it makes this a different question too, right? Because every other decision we talk about, every other day that we talk about is usually the result of the decision of ultimately one person. And Canucks fans as a collective then have to follow in line. They experience because of one man's decision. This is just dumb luck. This is and for that reason, there's a different element here. And after over 50 years of waiting, this could tell the tale here, depending on how much you believe these players differentiate from each other. Stenberg v. McKenna v. whoever. This could tell the tale for the next 20 years of Canucks existence here. And for that reason, Jeff, it feels like this could be the most anticipated moment, because we've had this team in a decent lottery position in years gone past. Remember, we were down at the Pint for one of the lottery days.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But the Canucks were not at the depths they are now, and less of a chance to win that first overall. They need this one, Jeff. Like this is needed here.
I hear you, and we talk about this on pretty much a daily basis because there's no whole lot else to talk about with this team right now. But I still think we all have to brace ourselves. Lotteries are by design set up to produce far more losers than winners. I mean, that's just the nature of what a lottery is. And so even though you have the best odds, you still don't have good odds. And like, are the Canucks overdue to have the first overall pick? Yeah, 55, 56 years of existence, as bad as they've been over the last decade plus. It is wild that through all of the failure of the franchise, that they have never been the first team to the podium to make a selection. So they are so long overdue. And yes, maybe Lady Luck needs, it's time that she shines on the Vancouver Canucks. But I still maintain people have to understand in the euphoria, if the lottery balls present the numbers, the winning combination for the Vancouver Canucks, you have to recognize that it's a 25% chance of winning, and it's 75% chance that you will not be the team that has the first selection in this draft. So it's stacked against all teams. Again, that's just what a lottery is.
Yeah, less than 43% chance. 56% chance of picking third versus 43 for the first two. Jeff, you got an afternoon affair against the St. Louis Blues tomorrow. Then you're in with me next week, filling in for Blake. So look forward to it already. Have a good show. We'll talk to you Monday.
Yeah, nobody seems to know why it's a 4:00 start against the St. Louis Blues, but it is. It's next gen day. Youth is being served, not just on the ice, but around the building. They'll have a kid PA announcer and other young people in positions of game presentation. They always do that. And this, and I'm not in the business of marketing Canuck games, but these two teams have the worst goal differentials in the National Hockey League. So it's misery loves company. There may be some offense in this one.
That's a great tease, Jeff. Goals. And it's a 4:00 because Hockey Night wants it buried upside the Battle of Ontario. They want Lightning and Oilers to stand alone as the late game tomorrow. They envisioned this months ago, Jeff.
That may be the simple answer, is just clear a path for the Oilers and McDavid Kucherov. Right. Whatever the case, yes, they will play. And, hey, we're getting a little early start on Rinkwide, and I'm okay with that.
I'm sure. And someone will win. Thank you, Jeff. Until Monday.
All right, guys.
So Karlsson Price from the historic Wall Center.
And this segment brought to you by your Pacific Toyota dealers, and in particular, the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid. This is a redesigned Prius. If you haven't checked out a Prius lately, it's time. This is, they don't call it a sports car. I will, because that's the kind of drive that you get. It restores the joy of driving a vehicle once again. Just a little tap on the accelerator and you are gone. But yet, I don't want to call it a sports car because lots of room in the back seat for the kids if you want. There's cargo in the backpack for the golf clubs and the hockey gear. It really does do it all. It was 72 kilometers of electric range every morning when you wake up, as long as you remember to plug it in. You are good to go, folks. And you're passing by all those $2.02 gas prices and such. It is glorious. Check it out with Red Tag Day deals on right now. Shop Toyota.ca. And this is Jeff Merrick is about to dunk on us. Be 202. It's only $1.60 here.
Yeah, I know. I'm waiting for that. Let's plug in Jeff Merrick, because that's all you have to do with this guest. You just plug him in and he goes. Yep.
174 I paid yesterday, Blake. And by the way, congratulations to Blake. Like, Maddie, I love hockey, but I don't love hockey like this. Boy. Blake. This is impressive.
He's a good soldier here on March break vacation.
Boy, yes.
Checking on in. I can remember years ago, it must have been years ago, going back to Ontario to visit some family and looking and going, oh, look at that. Gas isn't even $1 a liter here. Those were the days, Jeff. Those were the days.
Carefree, halcyon days, and azure sky of deep summer, Maddie, and azure sky of deep summer. Yes. Days are in a rear view mirror now.
Yeah.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're very well, and we're particularly well because, of course, the biggest day for the Vancouver Canucks, and that's the biggest day for our program, is when is this damn draft lottery? And finally, we got details yesterday that it's going to be May 5th. Frank Saravelli on the reporting here. But what I love about it, Jeff, is the whole conspiracy theorists have won the day. Because the league is no longer doing the draft lottery in the back lockup room like they do a federal budget. They are actually doing it in real time, so you get those real reactions from the member clubs participating. I think it's an improvement. Yes. I love the drama.
I love it. I love that too. I think all of our favorites were remember Connor McDavid Lottery Ball Day too. That was with some very candid reactions from managers and one very specific player as well. But yeah, I like it. It's cool. Like it really has. There are moments throughout the calendar, as you guys and all you listeners and viewers know, that a couple of days that really profoundly change the course of an organization. Lottery night is right up there amongst the tops. Trade deadline day is a big one. Free agent day too, obviously, but draft lottery significantly changes the fates of a lot of teams. Some get rewarded for not tanking. Case in point, the New York Islanders with Matthew Schaefer. There was a game against Columbus with a disallowed goal, which the Islanders didn't like at the time, but it led to the sliding door moment that allowed them to get in front of the New York Rangers, as we all recall. They always looking for that sliding door moment. So the Islanders got the good karma by not tanking, and ended up with Matthew Schaefer. We'll see what happens this time around.
Can you believe that after all these years and a futile organization like the Vancouver Canucks, something is broken, I think, with the lottery system to some degree, that a 50-plus year organization, many of those years spent outside the playoffs, they have never picked first overall, while a team like Edmonton went on a run of whatever it was, 5 and 6. I mean,
Calgary's never picked first overall either. Like the two teams right now with the highest odds have never picked first overall.
Yep, absolutely. And let's not forget too, you go back to the Buffalo Sabres and the Vancouver Canucks, and Vancouver thought that they had that first overall pick. They thought that they had Gilbert Perreault, as you guys well know. I know it is one of those just bizarre, like around lottery time. I feel tough for Vancouver fans, and I always feel tough for Detroit Red Wings fans as well. There's another one you want to throw in the mix that's had the bad lottery luck for a while. But yeah, here we are. Like we're at a place in the calendar right now for Vancouver where you find yourself cheering for weird things, right? Where every loss is a win, right? That's the bizarre position that you find yourself.
No, Jeff, let me interrupt. Let me interrupt.
Okay.
People here are quite sure they've got 32nd place locked up. We are actually seeing vibe and people cheering for victories at the arena, because it is so unlikely now that the Canucks could catch Calgary or anybody else for 31st. So we're actually riding the perfect storm right now. You can cheer for Canucks victories knowing full well their lottery odds are preserved.
Do you think, I mean, there are some that believe that in a salary cap sport, in a salary cap universe, that we're all, and everyone has to manage their own budget, everyone has to manage their own cap here, that perhaps, and I love it, so I mean, I would be mixed on this one. Perhaps they should just do away with the draft.
No.
And you have your players, you sign them, you manage your budget, and that's it.
Yeah. No, I've heard this argument before. What it creates is extreme competitive imbalance, like you see in European soccer. The draft system has served North American sports well. It is imperfect. But what you avoid, Jeff, because here's the thing, Wolverhampton right now, I believe, is at the bottom of the English Premiership table. But that club has a culture and a fan base. And as you know, English football, like they talk about my club, it's part of the community. It's been rooted there for a century plus. They are going to get their crowds. Okay, maybe it's fewer when you're bottom of the table. Maybe it's fewer when you get relegated. But in North American sports, what the draft and what worst picking first or close to it provides is a pathway back to contention. I just don't think you can sewer North American franchises over the long term and anticipate that they will all be in healthy economic standing. And if they're not, of course, that detracts from your league.
I'm just trying to make 82 games worth 82 games for 32 teams.
I hear you.
How about the idea of, like I always go back to the Sidney Crosby draft, right? This is coming out of the lockout, 04-05, nothing to base a lottery on. How do we do this? And everybody had a chance at first overall.
And
would
Jeff,
you warm
Pittsburgh
up?
was in most need of first.
Would you warm up to that one?
A matrix of some sort. The NBA's already going there. They're looking into the algorithm where you cannot win the lottery X number of years out of next number of years, things like that. I think a matrix, an algorithm like that is something worth looking into. Something that's fair, but tries to get a little less imperfect. It's still going to be imperfect. We're not going to get perfection.
So, yes, Matty.
Well, I was just going to say the NBA is going there. Major League Baseball has already gone there. If you pick in the top 10 one year, you can't the next year. So, for example, the White Sox, Pirates, and Giants were ineligible to pick in the top 10 this year. So if they won the lottery, the best they could be was 10, 11, and 12. So the fiddling has happened. The reason why it's such an issue in the NBA is because tanking is so pronounced. Like you look at some of the lineups that these teams at the bottom are dressing on a nightly basis, and it's sub NBA basketball. Like, that is the conversation that's going on there right now, that like Utah and Washington, some of these teams are putting teams on the floor that have no business calling themselves NBA teams in the best professional league. I was going to argue, gentlemen, and perhaps unpopularly, and Mike's got the visual up here, that after years of tinkering, I think the NHL has it pretty close to right with these odds. Go ahead and tank. The best you've got is a 1 in 4 chance at first overall. Okay, you baseline yourself as a top 3 pick, but in a lot of years, like a number 3 pick isn't, all that worth tanking for, right? So I think when I look at this table, I think the NHL has it mostly right. You've got enough teams that have a shot at first overall. You have, like I said, there's not a huge incentive for finishing last overall in terms of the first overall pick. It's more the incentive is more towards the top 3 picks, which I think is appropriate for teams that are as bad as, say, the Canucks this year.
Listen, as long as the NHL is going to go this route with the draft, I'm fine with what they've come up with at the end of it. I'm just trying to figure out, because I'm just trying to sort of lob out ideas that can lead to discussion that start in one place and end up where else. The one thing that I did, and you guys will love this one, there's a white whale that and I'll probably never find the answer to it, from the 2005 draft. I don't know if you guys recall this one. So it comes down to 2 teams. It comes down to the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Anaheim Ducks. And I think it was a card flip. And they flip it, and it ends up the Pittsburgh Penguins drafting first overall. Bill Wirtz, the late owner of the Chicago Blackhawks. You know this one, Maddie? Bill Wirtz.
He was sitting in the first row of the TSN studio, and he said justice, and James Duffy picked up on it
over again and over and over again. When I was at CBC, Ron McLean, and Ron has mentioned it a couple of times too, like trying to figure out what did he mean. I've had people suggest to me what he would do. He just ordered a scotch and he was saying just ice, and people mistook that for justice. And like, no, I'm pretty sure he was saying justice.
And the funny part is because, I mean, these were the dark days of the Blackhawks where he was the culprit by Blackhawks fans, right?
Yes, he was.
Well, what he was saying, of course, is that we knew that the Pittsburgh Penguins at the time were on shaky financial footing. And as we know, almost wound up in Hamilton, Ontario, if Jim Balsillie had his way. So it was effectively a redux of Mario 20 years earlier in terms of getting the generational first overall pick to stabilize the franchise in the city of Pittsburgh. I think that's what he was getting at. That he articulated it, Jeff, does make me wonder whether this was architecture and not pure lottery in that specific draft, because as you say, it was a unicorn coming out of the lockout.
So while we're talking about franchise changing players and Sidney Crosby, and look, he hasn't said it, Chris Patrick hasn't said it, no one at the Washington Capitals has said it, but it looks like this is going to be the swan song for Alexander Ovechkin. Everything is lining up that way, except for the schedule where the Capitals finish up in Columbus. I know Ovechkin started his career in Columbus in the NHL, but he should, if he's going to have his last game somewhere, it should probably be in Washington. But nonetheless, I was making the point with Wyshynski on the show yesterday that in the history of the NHL, the players that have been, there's two players that have been undercompensated more than anybody else based on how much actual dollars they left on the table and how much value they brought to their organization, where organizations are now $2 billion each. And that's Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby. Would you agree with me that they are the two most underpaid players in the history of the game, period?
And we thought that Ovechkin's contract when he signed it, remember when he first signed the massive one in the aughts there, late aughts, whatever year that was. And we just thought, oh my God, they're going to rue the day. And of course they didn't at all. They, in fact, ended up gloating by the end of that contract. So
with that level of player, you almost can't pay them enough in a cap system because of the value that they not only bring to their own franchises, but they go around the league and they represent gate in other markets too, right? So
listen,
they float all boats in that regard.
Yeah, 100% right. And you see it at all levels. You guys remember when Connor Bedard was on his Western Hockey League tour, and everywhere he went, it was sellout after sellout after sellout after sellout after sellout. 100%. Absolutely.
Let me ask you this.
You're right. It's not just Washington.
We've lamented, I think you've joined us, like the academy system that has hit hockey here and the Richie Rich pipeline. And it's terrible for grassroots hockey. But let me ask you this, is the one thing that it has done, has it made the first pick overall bust proof? Because we are creating robots here. We are creating android players that are so trained, so highly practiced. Are at this point, is first overall bust proof because of what they've gone through to get there?
Well, you're not getting Neil Yakupovs anymore. I'm trying to think of like who was the last one that we looked at first overall and went And I mean, Yakupov is a shining light.
It's Yakupov.
Yeah. You know, it's funny too. I was looking at that 2012 draft not too long ago. You could make the argument, and I do love Jacob Slavin, but if you redid that draft, two goaltenders would go first and second overall, Andrei Vasilevsky and Connor Hellebuck. And then you get to your Philip Forsbergs and your Jacob Slavins and et cetera, and Tom Wilsons. But if you would have taken a goaltender 1 and 2 at that time, those GMs would have been fired on the draft. Nonetheless, I digress about the draft. It kind of has, Blake. Like it really has, but it's not just the academy system. I think that's part of it too. I'll tell you what, one of the most interesting conversations I ever had at the Combine was with Matt Nickel, longtime strength and conditioning coach with the Maple Leafs, now with the Ottawa Senators, founder of BioSteel. Like his business card is sort of legendary. What Matty's meant to the industry. And I said, like, what does a guy like get out of this with these players? Like, number one is going number one, number two is going number, like, is there anything that they can do here that would give you cause for pause? And he said, I find it interesting, you know, some of the numbers and the shape that the players are in, but he said the most important information that I walk away from the draft, and a lot of teams do as well, from watching, not the draft, but watching the Combine specifically. And this is part of your question, I think, Blake, too, as far as making someone bust proof. He says, what the information that I take away is, where are certain players predetermined for injury? Where are they susceptible to injury? So like we're not just like by the time a player gets to the National Hockey League, sure, like there's all like the boxcar numbers we look at and all these types of things, but where are they? Where does it look like, okay, you're going to get to the next level, and this is the area we're going to need to be concerned about. This is the area of your body that we have concerns about. Like the NHL is getting to NFL levels here, right? Where you're learning everything about the athlete physically, learning things about the athlete mentally as well. So I don't know that it's necessarily the academy system, which is creating elite athletes. I think it's really like the entire package in order to get there is just so much better than, when we looked at the draft, back in like 1977 and said, oh, he played in the OHL, he's 200 pounds and he's 17 years old. This guy's going to be a shoe, and let's take him top 5. And the science behind the draft, I think, overall is a lot better. A lot better.
It sure, yeah. Honestly, though, guys, there really aren't many busts to begin with first overall. Yakupov, Stefan, DiPietro.
They're probably... Stefan was concussions.
Well,
I was
going to say...
Stefan gets it, but that was concussions. That was concussions for him.
Right. And Brian Berard as well. I mean, if not for the eye injury, we could have been talking about a fantastic... I mean, there are kind of boring first overalls, Hammerlick, Phillips, Eric Johnson, but for the most part, the first overall pick does realize potential. I do have questions about Lafreniere, though. I'm not sure Lafreniere is going to...
he looks... Whoa. Have you seen him lately?
Right now, he looks amazing. Yeah, right now, he looks amazing. It might have clicked now.
It might have clicked.
Man. Him Zibanejad, they look that line, like all of a sudden they've stumbled backwards into something here. Like him, Gabe Perreault, and Zibanejad look fantastic for the Rangers. Again, right now. We've seen Lafreniere go through streaks before, but as of right now, like Lafreniere is looking fantastic. He really is.
Okay. I'll give you that. Blake, we don't have a lot of time with him. He's got a very busy and important conference call coming up. So where do you want to go? Where do you want to go next? Do you want to go on the Canucks? Do you want to go on the Hughes family, or do you want to go on Hockey Canada?
Let's go to Hughes and Hockey Canada here first, because that's near and dear to his heart. Let's talk about the Hughes family's fall from grace ? Hasn't fully happened yet, but certainly the bloom is off the rose for a lot of people. The way Jack has spoken about the Olympics and the golden puck. Of course, Quinn's exit here had some detractors as well. Is it earned? Do they deserve sort of the pushback they're getting right now? Is it overblown?
Let me speak to Jack specifically, because I think part of this is about Jack, and I think the greater conversation is just about the American hockey team on the men's side specifically. I think that given, and again, like I really don't like telling people how to celebrate. Like if you win something, like celebrate. It's not hurting anybody else. Like celebrate as you see fit. But I really do think, and again, I was talking to Wyshynski from ESPN about this yesterday. He's quite strong on this, and even he's a huge USA hockey supporter. The conversation is like, how much damage did that team do to the momentum that USA hockey should have coming out of the most successful Olympics they've ever had? Whereas the significant momentum, which wasn't stalled and wasn't paused and actually grew after the games, is on the women's side. Like there's a real, wind beneath the sails here for the women's side and how they behaved post gold medal. I thought Hillary Knight was particularly strong on it.
Yes, she was.
But on the men's side, whether it was Kash Patel, White House, Thompson in the MAGA hat, State of the Union, and now Jack with the golden goal puck, it seems as if there's been a lot of stepping on rake moments here where really, like, how many times have we sat here and said, even though we're all Canadian, if you want to grow the game, the United States needs to start winning some of these goals. And there needs to be that momentum that carries through, much like the Miracle on Ice begat the Medanos and the Leclercs and the Roenics and Kachucks and all these guys, and on and on and on and on. There needs to be something like that. And we won't know for a while here, but it very much feels like that momentum isn't as big as it should be. Sure, we saw, the Hughes is on Saturday Night Live, but the takeaway from that was the women laughing at the guys.
Yeah,
because of
the
phone
damage
call.
control. That basically damage
Right?
control was written into the joke, right? Yes. I think it
Yeah.
plays out a whole lot differently
So
if Trump doesn't say what he does, if they all don't laugh.
Totally.
It was clearly engineered.
So then to the goal, to the puck issue, I really think that part of this is just he's grown up in an environment where you score a big goal, you get the puck, and that's it. I don't know that at that moment or even overall he thought, okay, well, really, who does own pucks here? Because all I've known playing in the GTHL when I was a kid or playing in the NHL as an adult, you get a puck, someone gives it to you and it's got tape on it, and your trainer writes why it's symbolic. Like that's the way that I don't think that. So I give him some grace on that one. Because he's never grown up in an environment where, no, sorry, you don't own the puck, right? You don't own all of these things. I'll tell you another one. I had this conversation with Matthew Tkachuk when he was in Calgary. We were talking about the Memorial Cup in Red Deer, where his London Knights won, and Matthew Tkachuk scored the Memorial Cup winning goal. And he said, right away, it was taken by the Hall of Fame, and that's what exists. I had no idea, where my stick went after the game. And then I find out that it's in the Hockey Hall of Fame, and he said he's trying to figure out a way or trying to find out if he can give that stick back. Like the Jack Hughes thing hasn't just happened to Jack Hughes. Like Matthew Tkachuk tried to get his stick back, so he told me, from the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I think like from a Canadian point of view, as much as we might want to we would never behave that way about memorabilia, it doesn't matter, get it in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Do we all forget about Stapleton and the 1972 Summit Series puck? Where people said, oh, yeah, Pat took it out of the net and he kept denying it and denied it until some video popped up of him actually fishing it out of the nets. And then he sheepishly said, well, yeah, I have it, but I lost it. I shot it into a snowbank.
Oh, right.
So I don't. It's like, we're not above this here in Canada.
Shame on you, Pat. Shame on you.
That's before an age of commercialization of memorabilia.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. That's a very good
point. He's got to run. So quickly on the Easter egg.
Yes, sir.
As always, Blake Price is here to help. He is your phone a friend. The NHL has conducted 26 draft lotteries this century. Now, as you mentioned, Jeff, the Sidney Crosby one coming out of the lockout was different. Everybody had a equal chance. So there have been 25 weighted draft lotteries with different formulas.
Okay. Yes.
Of the 25, how often has the team with the best odds picked first overall?
What a great question. I'm going to say 10. Of the 25.
I'll go lower. I'll say 8.
Congratulations, Jeff Merrick. Right on the number. 10.
Really?
Eric Johnson, St. Louis. Steven Stamkos, Tampa. John Tavares, Islanders. Taylor Hall, Ryan Nugent Hopkins, Edmonton. Austin Matthews, Toronto. Dahlin and Power, Buffalo. Slavkovsky, Montreal. And Celebrini, San Jose. Those are the 10
It's almost the best players except for McDavid. It's all
Eric Johnson, Slavkovsky, Power.
No.
Here's another question. Here's a question. Here's a question for you. Which team did the most to try to get the first overall pick?
Ooh.
Well, didn't Columbus trade for first overall and the right to get Rick Nash? Like, did Florida not win that lottery and traded with them because they were happy to take Bouwmeester?
And then they took Jay Bouwmeester. I'm more getting at here is this sort of tongue-in-cheek way of saying who really went out of their way.
Who sucked the most?
Deliberately. Like, and this is where I'll always invoke the name of Tim Murray in the Buffalo Sabres. Who, every time a goalie made a save, that goalie was either getting sent to Rochester or traded. Like there was one job,
and they didn't get it.
It was to stop.
That was 2015. The Sabres and Edmonton with the third best odds got Connor McDavid. You got to run. Thank you for the time. Look forward to next week already.
Thanks,
So Karlsson Price from the historic Wall Center, and big one tomorrow night as Vancouver Whitecaps FC host the San Jose Earthquakes. Mentioned it, Vancouver undefeated in MLS play, San Jose 3-1. So right there with that group of teams that have started so well in the Western Conference. We are joined now by Canadian international and Whitecaps center back, Ralph Priso. Ralph, are you okay?
I think we call him center back now. Yeah,
can we call you center? Have you taken to the introduction?
I think it's been long enough. I think center back's good now.
Yeah. Wow. The work at center back has been sublime, my friend. A big reason why the Caps were able to withstand that rash of injuries late last season when you stepped in, and of course, following up into this year. But let's start with the Canadian international nod. You got the call up this week. How does it feel to know you'll be representing your country?
No, it's definitely a good feeling. Exciting for sure. A goal for any player. So happy to have been called up and excited to get going there.
When did you feel like, have you had the World Cup dream for a while? Like thinking that you could find a way onto that roster? When did that start? Where is it now?
Not really. I think the moment where it kind of seemed possible-ish is after the season. Me and Jesper had a conversation, and he told me pretty straight up, he's like, I think if you want to go as a midfielder, I think you're a little bit far away. But he said, but I think if you take on playing center back, I think, it's possible for you. So that's when I kind of just told myself, okay, let's just run with this and then see what happens.
Ralph, take me back to the day when the possibility of playing center back was first brought to you.
I think it was the day after we played San Diego away last season. And actually two things happened that day. I think that's the day Ranko got hurt. And that's also the day that San Diego had a lot of center backs out. And so Dua played center back for the first time on their team, who was also a midfielder, and did really well. And so after the game, I think it was a few days later, I went into a meeting with Jesper and Jan, and they kind of just said, look, Ranko went down. We're kind of down a few guys. So if something ever happens, you might need to play center back. And they said, look, we just played against this guy who just did it for the first time and it did well. And they were like, do you think you could do it? And I said, yeah, I think so. If the time ever came, I think I could. So I think it was a little bit later, we went to Seattle, and that's when I first did it. And so since then, it's kind of just gone pretty well.
So you walk out of that meeting, where's your headspace at?
I didn't think I would actually have to do it. I didn't think it would actually come to it. But I knew, if there were ever a need, I knew I would be the guy to do it because we spoke about it, but I never actually thought I would need to do it.
What I love about watching
you've done it pretty well. You've done it really well.
What I love about watching you back there is that you and Tristan both can pass the ball so well. So particularly when it's you and him, but Matthias is not a bad passer either. Is that it sort of feels like, and we saw this with Seattle already, and the game before that. I'm losing my mind now in MLS play. Before the 3-0 loss and the game before that, it was a great example of teams that put up a mid-block, and it sort of clogs things up for your midfielders. And Seb and Andres become a little bit neutralized so that it becomes you and Tristan sort of dealing from the back. And in essence, to me, it almost looks like you're back to being a midfielder again. You're just a little bit deeper back. I mean, does it feel like you touch the ball less? Because it feels like you guys are still pretty integral in distributing the ball and integral to the buildup.
Yeah, I think especially with the way we play, our center backs are all comfortable on the ball, and we're all very involved when we have possession. So for me, in terms of with the ball, if anything, it's probably maybe a little bit nicer because I get to start every attack. I kind of have everything in front of me. I get to see everything, and so I can kind of choose what I want to see develop or have a bigger impact on the start of it. So with the ball, it's not that different, and probably obviously a little bit easier.
Been a terrific start in MLS. You got a quality opponent coming in tomorrow. What's going to be important against San Jose, and what do you make of yet another fantastic start for the club?
Yeah, it'll be important to just make sure that everyone's doing all the recovery needed to be ready for tomorrow. We've been playing a lot of games, and so it'll be important for everyone to be ready. And then, yeah, they're a good team. They started well. I think lost a few guys, but have brought in a few other guys, and guys who have already been there are stepping up. So it's going to be a good challenge for us, and we'll be up for it. Like you said, we've started well. But we want to keep this good start going for as long as possible.
What's been the key to the start, Ralph? What do you identify as the reason why you guys are so far undefeated in MLS play?
I mean, I think we're just a good team. We're just a good team with guys who are bought in and invested into being a good team this year. Also, I think we know how important home games are. Last year we didn't get to play the crucial games in the playoffs at home. And I think that's because we dropped some points at home during the season. So we know how important it is to pick up points at home, because we know that'll make a big difference at the end of the year.
It doesn't feel like you guys have slipped much at all, but the problem is that the rest of the Western Conference has become so good that games like this one against San Jose, who were, bottom third of the conference last season, they all of a sudden look like they could vie to be in the top third of the conference. It doesn't look like there's many off weeks for you guys within your own conference right now.
Yeah, I think before the season there was a lot of talk that the East was probably better than the West, but now I think everyone's seeing that there's a lot of good teams in the West. So I think it's good for us. It'll mean that we'll have to perform every week. And if you want to be a top team and you want to be a team who's battling for MLS Cup at the end of the season, you need to be battle tested. So I think it can only be positive.
Now that the game's behind you, the Champions Cup, can you see the silver lining of a less clogged, less congested schedule? I think a lot of Whitecaps fans wanted you guys to try to avenge your loss last season, obviously, in the final. But at the same time, they were like, look, the MLS Cup is the most important thing. And for you guys to have a little less congestion, maybe that's a good thing. Do you abide by that theory, or is it still sore to be out of that competition?
Yeah, I understand it. I think we're all disappointed being out of the Champions Cup. It's definitely something that we wanted to compete for. And the fact that we weren't able to is definitely disappointing. But yeah, like you said, I think now we'll have more time on the training pitch, just more time to prepare for every game. And so I think that should probably make us even better every Saturday. So definitely something that we can look to take advantage of.
You're no stranger to Toronto. It's your hometown. You're no stranger to BMO Field, and you're no stranger to playing for Canada. But what would it mean to get a senior international cap and participate in one of these games at the end of the month in your hometown?
Yeah, it'd definitely be something special for me and my family, especially doing it in Toronto at BMO. But I don't want to think about it too much. We have an important game on Saturday, so we'll get to that first, and then when it comes time to think about the national team, we'll think about the national team.
Well, we wish you luck on both fronts. Looking forward to the match tomorrow at BC Place. San Jose is in. It's a 7:30 kickoff. And, of course, looking forward to those Canada matches at the end of the month at BMO in Toronto against Iceland and Tunisia. And Ralph would love to see you here in June in a Canadian jersey. All right?
Yeah, go get it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Garrison Price from the historic Wall Center in the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studio, built by Arbor Lee. Tickets secured, hotel solved. Make Wall Center your downtown headquarters for every big game, concert, rivalry night. See what's happening at wallcenter.com. Well, lots going on in the world of soccer around the Whitecaps, and we'll get to that in a second. But a most interesting story today from Trevor Beggs of the Daily Hive, wondering about a potential new owner for the Caps who have been on the sales block for a year and a half here. His name is Joseph Tsai, and if it sounds familiar, it's because he's the co-founder of a gigantic company, Alibaba, and he recently sold his minority stake in LAFC. Now, he's 62 years old, currently estimated net worth of $10 billion with a B dollars. He holds a Canadian passport. He spent some time in Vancouver before his parents moved to the States. He has said through a spokesperson in the past he became a citizen of Canada in 1970 when his parents were naturalized. He is the owner of the Brooklyn Nets and the Barclays Center, as well as the New York Liberty of the NBA or WNBA. And he's got a minority stake in the Miami Dolphins, as well as ownership stakes in 2 national lacrosse franchises, the San Diego Seals and the Las Vegas Desert Dogs, where he partners with Steve Nash, Wayne Gretzky, and former PGA Tour pro Dustin Johnson. It's a most interesting name, Blake. Now, begs, I don't know if Trevor knows something and is just getting this on the record, setting the stage for something to come. There is no expression of interest or no contact with Mr. Tsai or his spokespeople to gauge any kind of interest. But he's got Vancouver ties. He's got an interest in sports ownership. He's got an affiliation or a friendship with a current Whitecaps minority owner in Steve Nash. And needless to say, he has a pretty big appetite for sports ownership given the breadth of franchises that he either owns or has a piece in. It's going to take this kind of wallet, I think, because, of course, whoever buys this club either needs to be rich enough to buy the stadium or has a bigger developmental plan for the Hastings site to be able to offset the cost of the stadium through retail or residential or whatever else may go on that plot of land.
The biggest problem with the stadium, obviously, is the outlay of cash at the outset, right?
On the front end,
it will be built with concert venue, casino, like all the accoutrement all around, commercial, and probably residential attached as well, all to recoup the initial outlay of money, all of which could exceed the initial outlay of money. And that's where a guy like this comes into play. He wants to make a play. He wants to make money and invest money. And, you don't make sports franchise acquisitions for short-term money unless there's a play like this involved. Generally, it's more of a long-term play. This could be very interesting, and I don't know, again, like what kind of dots he is connecting. Reached out to one source who is familiar with a couple of the parties that have kicked tires on the Whitecaps, and the source wasn't able to confirm that they knew that Tsai was part of this, but said in their own brain, they could imagine that maybe he was a part of a couple of groups that he does know of. So, often there's a group that's sort of fronting a bid with money behind them. They could imagine that, there might be a connection with one or two groups that they know of. So it's possible that this comes from a position of knowledge. And this is just a good spitball, too. It's like when this was originally announced, people went, Tom Ghilardi. And people fleshed that out with Ghilardi, and Ghilardi said, no, it's not going to be me. Sorry. But these are the sort of worthwhile fishing expeditions for reporters to sort of look at the possible scenarios. And this is a great name to bring up.
Yeah, and I did a lot of that when I was doing sports business for newspapers back east, both on CFL franchises, on NHL franchises, and others, that you typically are dealing with a very small pool because you're dealing with people who are rich enough that if the team has a bad year and attendance sucks and you're on the hook for tens of millions of dollars of losses, you've got to be able to afford that, right? So if you're worth $250, $500 million on paper, great, but you probably don't have the liquidity to be able to afford down years, particularly in the big four sports franchises where the losses can get quite significant, particularly if you don't have other revenue streams under your control. A couple of quotes that stand out in this article. that Beggs dug up from Sai's history. With regards to his partnership with Nash on the NLL franchise, Mr. Sai said, I enjoy seeing him, hanging out with him. It's very natural. We're fellow Canadians. I'd love to partner with him on this and more things as well. Huh. That's pretty interesting. Upon purchasing a 3% stake in the Miami Dolphins from their majority owner, Stephen Ross, he said, quote, I told the team in my family office, look at this thing as a pure financial investment. And then he went on to talk about how it's the Dolphins, it's their stadium, it's the F1 track around the stadium there in Miami. It's the fact that the Miami Open Tennis Tournament takes place there. So on one hand, you have him saying, would love to partner with Steve Nash again, which I think is positive in this regard. On the other side, he is saying, look, it is an investment, right? Like he's not getting into sports for charity purposes. And the other thing that I think we have to start considering here, Blake, is at what point does the price tag of the Whitecaps come significantly down from the whatever the most recent valuation of the franchise is by Forbes or one of these agencies? Because, of course, Don Garber and MLS owners have an interest in making sure that the purchase price of the Whitecaps is pretty high. This is one of the reasons why the Ottawa Senators sale lingered so much, because it is one of the least valuable franchises in the NHL. Gary was hell-bent on getting $1 billion for it, and groups like Ryan Reynolds and others went, it ain't worth $1 billion. So what would Kerfoot and Mallet sell it for? What would Garber and MLS governors accept as a transaction price? And that is particularly dicey terrain, because if it is just pure economic interest on the part of Garber and the MLS owners to set a precedent to make sure their franchises are worth what they think they're worth, then that brings in the possibility of relocation, right? Like, oh, okay, he would save it in Vancouver, but the guy in Vegas or the guy wherever is willing to pay that much more. Sure hope it doesn't get to that. Sure hope that the MLS intentions are pure when they talk about wanting to keep the team in our city.
Sports franchise values are pretty arbitrary at the best of times, particularly for a team that does not own a stadium. And in this economy right now, you have to believe there's never been a worse time to try to sell a sports franchise, because, there's a lot of people.
Well, maybe an MLS franchise, Blake. I'm not sure about NBA teams. They're looking for $7 to $10 billion for these expansion franchises. But I do understand what you're getting at.
I don't know that the $7 to $10 billion franchise in the NBA is going to sell like hotcakes either. Like, honestly, I know there are interested parties, and because Vegas and Seattle are so hungry, they will sell. But if you tried to just snap your fingers and sell the Charlotte Hornets right now, I think it'd be interesting to see how many people with the price.
Vegas has had a lot of appeal, and there's a lot of big wallets in Seattle, obviously, with the tech and other industries that are there. But yes, it is very important to keep all of this in mind, because whoever is purchasing the Whitecaps with the intention of keeping them in Vancouver is looking at two really big checks, not one, right?
Yeah.
The first one, to buy the team from Kerfoot, Mallet, and partners. The second one, as you say, the front end of stadium construction, even if there are revenue streams around stadium construction that are ultimately going to make it a good business deal for you.
Well, and this comes in a market where developers are walking away from towers that they have zoned for, that they've already pre-sold units for, and they are refunding those amounts and saying, we're not building this tower. So if towers were still shooting up and condos were selling out, I think it's a lot easier to pull this off if you can get permission. And I think they were going to get permission from the city and the province to put a tower above or adjacent to a stadium, much like Rogers Arena has. But like, that's just not guaranteed, money anymore. So again, tough time to be trying to do this if you're the Whitecaps.
Blake, I drive by a number of newly constructed towers on my way here to the Wall Center each and every morning, and particularly when the sun wasn't out as early. The number of units that are dark and uninhabited is quite striking compared to what I've been accustomed to in Vancouver for nearly a couple of decades of living here. BC is partnering with the Whitecaps and Via Sport in a World Cup legacy project. They are funding 20 mini soccer pitches around the province. This is Tourism, Arts, Culture, and Sport Minister Ann Kang. She says, quote, "This moment is about far more than what happens during the tournament. It's about what happens because of it and the legacy we leave behind." And of course, the question is, will the Whitecaps be left behind? As we've mentioned, a very awkward scenario brewing where a World Cup host city and venue would lose its top professional soccer club. As part and parcel of this, Axel Schuster was asked whether there's any update on the stadium situation. He said, quote, "Nothing has changed. Our primary goal is to find that solution. We're continuing to invest into soccer in this province. We're remaining optimistic, and we find a solution, but there's no new update." The Whitecaps are going to manage this program with the communities that are able to apply for a mini pitch on their website. The team has done this before, building mini pitches in 9 different Indigenous communities. The project, $13 million price tag, $4.5 million from the province, $5.5 by Via Sport, and $3 million in kind from the Whitecaps. So it's not writing a check, but it's in kind contributions. And good to see Kerfoot and Mallet and the ownership continuing to invest in soccer in this province. I think that is a good sign. Each of these mini pitches, 60 by 120 feet, enclosed, level surface, built to accommodate a variety of sports through the year. We've talked about it before, partner. We're still early days in this MLS season. If the Whitecaps have their druthers, they'll be playing all the way to the week before Christmas when MLS Cup goes on December 18th. But there will come a turning point at some point this season where no news on the stadium site becomes bad news for the Whitecaps, because fans will look around and go, I'm supporting this, but are they going to be here next season?
March 20th already. I would say we are post-World Cup. It starts to get dicey, Matt.
I would agree.
Right around that time.
I would agree, especially since there could be a whole lot of groundswell, good emotion towards soccer and Canadian soccer if things happen as we hope they happen with Canada and those 2 games here at BC Place.
And there's also the mini season coming up too.
About to get to that.
You could make the argument, hey, you're not moving the team before the mini season. That's not going to happen.
So here we go. Yeah, for 2027 MLS sprint season, this is the bridge season before they move to the World Football calendar. It's going to transition them to the summer to spring in 2027. So each team will play 14 regular season matches split evenly between 7 home games, 7 road games in conference. So Caps are either going to host Portland or Seattle and play at one of the other sites. 8 teams from each conference are going to qualify for the playoffs. All regular season matches will be, mentioned that. All playoff games will be single elimination. There will be a supporters shield for the standings winner. And in this format with just 14 games, goals and shutouts are going to be very important, right, in terms of tiebreakers. And then you're into single elimination. I don't know. As you know, I'm against the move of season here, Blake. So I read this and it strikes me a little Mickey Mouse, but give me your 2 cents. What do you think of this sprint season?
Well, there's 2 arguments to be made. First of all, how do you do this in the transition? And I just don't think there is any other way other than this. So if you're going to make this move, I think this is the way that you have to do it. I mean, you can't just go dark for 6 months.
When does it start? When's it going to start? Is it in
late July, early August?
No. When's the sprint season starting?
Oh, I don't think they've fully announced that. It'll probably be a tad earlier, I would guess. So this was February 21st this year. Maybe they move it to February 14th, something like that, just to buy themselves a little bit of a buffer and more time.
It will be July when they go to the full season that aligns with global football.
Yeah, so we're just back to the original question about switching over, and I don't know, like it comes with it a bunch of different inherent risks, and until we have seen it, I don't know that we know what that looks like. Again, I'll remind people, European football takes a 4 to 6 week break in the heart of the winter as well. So you're not playing through deep into December in any of those leagues. And I will remind, what's that?
I've been to Premiership games in December.
Early December, yes. But then they take a break.
Boxing Day. In fact, Boxing Day is a big day in the UK for football rivalries. Did they take a full break, or did they just sort of pause for cups and international? I think they're still playing throughout. They don't. Leagues may go dark, but I'm not sure all teams and all competitions go dark, Blake.
Right. Yes. Yeah. But many leagues do go dark in Europe. You don't have to play through deep December and early January. Many leagues go fully dark. Again, if they are qualified for Champions League and all that, that's different. But the point is they still do make it work. And these are teams that play, like Sweden has a soccer league. They take a big break because they know they can't play. Like, there is a way to make this happen. Until we've seen it executed here in North America, I don't know that we know fully how it's going to work. But even in London,
the bottom line is
London in early December is not a nice place to watch a game, and yet everybody shows up. Right?
Well, that's the thing, is the English are encultured now. I mean, they show up in their parkas. They show up in the driving rain through the winter months to watch some of these games. Also should mention more details on the FIFA World Cup Fan Fest. Be a huge summer concert lineup coming over 28 days in June when the World Cup is here, June, July. Some of the acts: Motley Crue, Deadmau5, and Cascade. Seen Deadmau5 before, Mike. Very talented Canadian too.
Sure is. I got a.
Did you work with him?
No, one of my students works with him.
Oh. I mean, he's 1 or 2 degrees separation from virtually every huge musical recording act the world over, Mike Rogerson. City's most interesting man, as we've said. Blue Jays announcement as part of their 50th anniversary season celebrations. They're opening a Hall of Excellence on the concourse there at Rogers Center. It is going to be opened in August and include the 11 members that are currently on the level of excellence, which is displayed inside the bowl out in left field. That display will be moved to this Hall of Excellence on the concourse, and they have announced that Buck Martinez will be the next inductee to that Hall of Excellence, of course, retiring as Blue Jays color man after all these years, will be celebrated at a game in late August. All right, poll question results from yesterday. Given Hughes family entitlement, Marco Rossi's played. You miss Quinn Hughes, yes or no? People said
no.
Correct. Percentage?
72.
76. Pretty good. Glenn says yes, 1,000% yes. The best defenseman this team has ever had. Call him entitled, call him a bad captain. I'm sure it will roll. I'm sure it was a role he truly didn't want in the first place, but still accepted. He was thrust into dealing with player drama that should have been handled by the GM and president. Suleiman, hell no. And Dave, I only miss Canucks players who win. I hear you, Dave. Errors and omissions from yesterday's program and beyond. Already mentioned I had the Giants game Sunday. It is Saturday. I'm Klausi and Spectacle, the artist responsible for the Canucks victory song, We called them EDM yesterday. They're not EDM.
Oh.
Mike called it. What did you call it, Mike? Pop?
Electropop.
Electropop. There you go. And it's 10. It was 10 appearances without a victory for Kevin Lankinen. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. Live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. And, of course, please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.